Here's some money. Go see a Star Wars.
You already know how great the original Star Wars movie is, although it does have its flaws. Luke Skywalker's unintentionally kind of a bitch in this movie. For example, there's that one scene where that guy's like, well, how are we going to hit that? It's an impossible shot. And then Luke Skywalker's just like, well, it's not an impossible shot. I used to bullseye womp rats back home when it's like, shut the fuck up, bro. You don't have to one-up everybody. But whatever, man. Star Wars is still awesome. I still think it has the best costumes and the best music out of any space movie that exists to this day. So Star Wars goes into the peak cinema tier. Alien, and this is a simple one. Number one, it has the Xenomorph, which is probably the coolest alien design in the history of cinema. And number two, it has Prime Sigourney Weaver. This is an easy choice. This goes into the Hall of Fame. 2001: A Space Odyssey, and the main thing that this movie is known for is the cinematography and the special effects, and that pretty much speaks for itself. But one of the common complaints that I see a lot of people have against this movie is that it's kind of boring. It is really slow. It's a very glacially paced movie, but I don't think it's boring. It actually does have a really engaging story. It's not just pretty pictures. Right out the gate, this movie establishes a compelling mystery. You see this crazy monolith that's got this super eerie music playing, and you just can't help yourself but wonder, what is this thing? You see this monolith bestow the knowledge of weapons technology on these primitive apes, then they're able to use that to beat the shit out of all these other apes. Then it does a jump cut millions of years later to a nuclear satellite. I mean, you can't tell me that that is not an amazing hook to a story. And then a little bit later down the line, after the halfway plot turn, it almost turns into a thriller movie with HAL 9000, who is one of the best villains in cinema history. And you have to keep in mind, this movie came out in the 1960s, and still to this day, there has not been any creepy AI villain that comes anywhere close to HAL 9000. So yes, it is an extremely slow-paced movie, but it gets away with it because it is such a compelling and interesting story. 2001 truly lives up to its title, Space Odyssey, more so than any other space movie that exists. It's covering the evolution of humanity from primitive apes to space travelers. Then they go through a wormhole to the fourth dimension. I mean, this is just one of the most epic movies of all time, and it definitely goes into the best in the universe here.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Yeah, that's all I need to say. Solaris, and this movie is basically Andrei Tarkovsky's diss track against Stanley Kubrick. 2001: A Space Odyssey is phony on many points, even for specialists. For a true work of art, the fake must be eliminated. So yeah, that's basically what Tarkovsky had to say about 2001: A Space Odyssey. I mean, he pretty much hated that movie. I guess he found it to be too sterile, too focused on technology. So he made Solaris as a response because he wanted to make a space movie that was more focused on humanity. And yeah, you can definitely see that in this movie. The way I would describe Solaris is basically a space movie, but coming from a director who doesn't really care about space. The movie starts off on Earth and it's these absolutely beautiful shots of nature, but the more he starts interacting with technology, the shittier it gets. Like, there's a 10-minute scene where it's just him driving through this city, and it's kind of just this concrete jungle that's overcrowded, overcongested. And then he goes out to the space station, and it's just super dingy and almost dilapidated. And it's very apparent in this movie that Tarkovsky is skeptical about this endless pursuit of technological advancement. I mean, this movie barely even qualifies as a space movie. Okay, yeah, it does technically take place in space. It's a movie about a bunch of cosmonauts. But like, space barely plays a role in this movie at all. It's much more philosophical and more concerned about what it means to be a human rather than exploring space. And I gotta say, I definitely do appreciate Solaris as a work of art, but I'm definitely on Team Kubrick when it comes to this one-sided beef. I think 2001: A Space Odyssey is a better movie. Now, both of these movies are extremely slow, but 2001: A Space Odyssey does have a really compelling hook right out the gate, whereas Solaris pretty much just ditches all of the screenwriting techniques that are used to kind of like psychologically hack the viewer to get engaged into the movie. And that's not to take away from Tarkovsky. That is part of why he's such a legendary filmmaker. He is not concerned with trying to immediately hook the audience into his movies. He is much more of an artist than he is an entertainer. Yeah, but personally speaking, I don't know, maybe I'm just infected with Hollywood brain rot. but I like movies to have some entertainment value. So yeah, I'm gonna put Solaris into the good movie tier because it does have some amazing payoffs later on in the movie, but in my opinion, it is kind of a pain in the ass to get to that point. Armageddon. This is going to be the first movie that goes into the mid tier. And to this movie's credit, the reason why it's in the mid tier is because it's stupid as fuck. It's not like this movie is boring or bland or anything like that. It's just really dumb. But I'm going to take a dumb movie over a bland movie any day of the week. Speaking of bland movies, Ad Astra. This is basically just the Make-A-Wish version of Apocalypse Now. Just the definition of mid. The Empire Strikes Back, and this is basically just a much more refined version of the original Star Wars movie. Everything that was already great about the original Star Wars movie, Empire Strikes Back does it better, and on top of that, it has pretty much all of the most iconic scenes in the Star Wars franchise. I just think it's the best Star Wars movie by far, so this easily goes into the Hall of Fame. And now we're going all the way back to 1902, A Trip to the Moon. This movie came out while the Ottoman Empire still existed. And obviously this movie comes nowhere close to modern space movies, but it still does kind of hold up to some extent. I mean, honestly, my favorite part of the movie is how all the astronomers in this just dress like wizards. Like, imagine if every person who worked at NASA looked like Dumbledore. That's basically the aesthetic of this movie. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that it's my favorite movie of all time, but I mean, it's still a pretty good movie, and you got to respect the OG. I'm putting this into the good movie tier. You know how in a lot of these sci-fi movies, they'll just start saying random bullshit? They're like, oh, we need to adjust the flux capacitor to recalibrate the electron turbo beam. And it's just complete nonsense. One thing I do really appreciate about The Martian, though, is that it completely replaces technobabble nonsense with some pretty well thought out science fiction concepts. I mean, as far as Andy Weir adaptations go, I definitely prefer Project Hail Mary, but The Martian still goes into the good movie tier. Project Hail Mary, and this is an extremely sentimental, crowd-pleasing movie. It's one of those movies where anytime a major scene happens, they're like, quick, cue the emotional music, cut to the close-up of the person crying. And like, yeah, when you're watching it, sometimes it does feel like they're laying it on a little bit too thick. But I gotta be honest, it worked on me. Sometimes you're definitely gonna be aware of the Hollywood psychology tricks they're pulling on you. But for me personally, 99% of the time, I was just completely absorbed into the movie. I really don't know how you could watch this movie and not fall in love with Rocky and not get super emotionally invested in Grace and Rocky's friendship. I mean, it's just so good. It also does have the same benefit as The Martian, where it tries to replace the technobabble with some decently well thought out science fiction stuff. I mean, I'm not saying it's perfect, but I definitely much prefer that over something like the MCU, for example. They were like, oh, we need to make a time travel machine by using a neutrino precision laser. Like, they just say like nonsense. The only real issue I had with this movie is the absolute onslaught of dad jokes. To be honest, I think a lot of the jokes in this movie might age kind of poorly, but I don't think it's a major detriment to this movie, mainly because Ryan Gosling is charismatic enough in this to pull it off. I kind of love this movie. I'm going to put it into the peak cinema tier. Check out this video right here to see if you have a good taste in music.